You're listening to Audiology. Support this channel by becoming a member and be sure to submit your requests for topics in the comments below. Federalist number 4, known as The Same Subject Continued, Concerning Dangers from Foreign Force and Influence, is an essay by John Jay, and it is the 4th paper in the series known as the Federalist Papers. It was first shared with the public in the Independent Journal on November 7, 1787, under the pen name Publius, a name used for all entries in the Federalist Papers. This essay is the 3rd out of 4 written by Jay, which discuss how to protect the United States from harmful foreign influence and military threats. It picks up the discussion from Federalist number 3 and sets the stage for Federalist number 5. In this paper, Jay talks about the risk of European countries starting wars against the United States. He made the case that having the states united would help prevent other nations from defeating the U.S. or creating rifts between the states. Jay pointed out that having a single united military force is better than having many separate ones, and that a federal government could better serve the interests of all states. Through Federalist number 4, Jay shows his support for a centralized government and expresses doubt about the effectiveness of individual state governments in protecting the nation from foreign threats. Since the U.S. Constitution was ratified, there have been very few instances of foreign attacks on the United States. Jay starts off by making it clear that the United States needs to protect itself from becoming the victim of an unfair war. He points out that countries might decide to go to war whenever they see a chance to benefit from it. Specifically, Jay notes that a ruler with absolute power could choose to wage war for personal gains like seeking glory, revenge, or fulfilling their own ambitions. He also highlights the economic motive behind conflicts, explaining how nations could clash with America in an attempt to dominate international trade. From these observations, Jay deduces that as the United States grows, it will naturally attract the attention of European countries, thus increasing the likelihood of diplomatic strains. To avoid conflict with European nations, Jay stresses the importance of the United States strengthening its government by unifying the states. He draws a parallel with the British armed forces and militias, noting their combined strength as a unified entity rather than separate forces from England, Scotland, and Wales. Jay strongly believes that a united American militia, operating under one federal government, would provide much more effective protection than 13 individual state militias. He argues this unified force could focus its resources on any part of the country under threat, a strategy not feasible for separate militias. Further, Jay raises concerns about the potential for political meddling by European powers. He cautions that if America were to be divided into 3 or 4 confederacies, each might be backed by a different European country, such as Britain, France, or Spain. Such a scenario could lead to the confederacies either neglecting conflicts that affect their neighbors or, worse, fighting among themselves under the influence of their European sponsors. Jay wraps up his essay with a warning about the dangers of internal divisions, making it clear that such fragmentation would only harm the United States. Federalist Paper number 4, written by John Jay under the pen name Publius, aimed to support the ratification of the U.S. Constitution by New York. This paper was first shared with the public through the Independent Journal on November 7, 1787. It also appeared in the Daily Advertiser the next day, and then in the New York Packet on November 9, where it was mistakenly referred to as Federalist number 3. Building on the themes of its predecessor, Federalist number 3, which advocated for a United States as a safeguard against just wars, Federalist number 4 took the argument a step further. It proposed that such unity would additionally protect the country from unjust wars, thereby reinforcing the earlier paper's argument for unity as a shield against foreign conflicts. In Federalist number 4, Jay made a strong case for why the United States needed a single, united federal government to keep the country safe from the threat of foreign invasion. He believed that without this unity, other countries might see an opportunity to attack, since there wouldn't be a central authority to lead the state's response, and it would be easier for these countries to take economic advantage. Jay thought that it was crucial not just for a state to look out for its own safety, but for the safety of all states together. He saw government as a sort of partnership, where everyone works together for mutual protection, an idea shared with thinkers like Thomas Hobbes and John Locke. Jay kept emphasizing the need for a strong central government, and likened the states to members of a big family. Jay pointed out that people tend to get into conflicts naturally, moving away from his earlier viewpoint in Federalist number 3, where he talked about wars having just causes. In Federalist number 4, he suggested that having a unified government would discourage foreign powers from attacking and would encourage them to maintain good relations with the U.S. He backed up his argument with historical examples and conflicts from his own time, mentioning potential triggers for wars, such as the arbitrary decisions of monarchs and disagreements over trade. Jay believed that in the event of a war, a federal government would have several advantages over separate state governments, like having a bigger pool of talent for leadership, states being more supportive of one another, and being better positioned to negotiate treaties that would benefit all states. His perspective was likely influenced by the American Revolutionary War, which showed the states banding together without a federal government. However, Jay saw this as proof of the need for a unified military and government structure to defend against attacks, especially considering the proximity of British and Spanish colonial territories to the US. He also mentioned how the United States' struggle for unity mirrored the union within Great Britain, which the states had fought against, drawing parallels and expressing support for policies like the Mercantilist Navigation Acts. Jay made a clear distinction between the roles and effectiveness of a federal government versus those of individual state governments, highlighting the federal government as the ideal form of governance. He criticized state governments for their lack of accountability and their vulnerability to influence from powerful nations like Britain, Spain, and France. In concluding Federalist No. 4, Jay issued a stark warning against the dangers of internal division, arguing more directly than before that a confederated approach, where the states operated independently of one another, was doomed to fail, essentially saying it would inevitably lead to the states drifting apart. In Federalist No. 5, Jay doubled down on themes he previously explored in Federalist No. 4. Alexander Hamilton also echoed these sentiments, showing support for British mercantilist policies in his writings. Since its inception, the United States federal government has been mostly successful in keeping foreign attacks at bay. Up until 2015, the notable exceptions have been the War of 1812, the Pearl Harbor attack, and the assaults of September 11th. Currently, in the 21st century, the United States isn't significantly threatened by invasions or traditional warfare. Instead, the major concerns are cyber attacks and the threat posed by weapons of mass destruction. This includes dangers from terrorist organizations as well as hostile countries. In response, the United States has worked on building its defenses through alliances, participating in international groups like the North American Free Trade Agreement, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and the United Nations. Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more content.